It was just past midnight when I heard the first noise, glass shattering, sharp and angry. I was in the barn, cleaning up, thinking it was just a raccoon or maybe a loose board flapping in the wind. But then I heard her, loud, high-pitched, yelling something about community standards and non-compliant flagpoles as she stormed through the side entrance, bat in hand. She wore a bright pink tracksuit like she was going to a 2006 yoga class, not breaking into a stranger's property. She didn't knock. She didn't hesitate. She swung the bat like she was in the final inning of the World Series, aiming for whatever she could reach. She knocked over a toolbox, clipped a workbench, and screamed like she was leading a charge. What she didn't know, or care to consider, is that this wasn't some cookie-cutter house in a gated neighborhood. This was my land, my rules. And I'm not exactly the ask permission type. I stayed quiet in the shadows. Ranger, my Belgian Malinois, froze at my side. He didn't bark, didn't growl. He didn't need to. We both waited. I raised my rifle, just enough to light her up with the red dot. It danced right across her chest as she took another step. That stopped her. Fast. Now, I'm not the kind of man who looks for trouble, but I know exactly how to handle it when it finds me. Calm as a summer morning, I stepped into the light and said, "You've got 3 seconds to explain why you broke into my property with a weapon." Her jaw dropped. The bat slipped from her hands and clanged against the floor. She started rambling something about HOA violations and how she had the authority to correct the situation. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about rules. This was about control. She came here thinking I was just another quiet rancher. She picked the wrong place to play dictator. I didn't move out here to be a hero or to fight anybody. I came for the quiet. After years of noise, real noise, the kind that leaves a ringing in your head long after it's gone, I just wanted space. I bought this land because it offered something most people don't even notice they've lost. Peace. 40 acres of it. No neighbors within shouting distance. And that's how I liked it. No barking dogs at midnight. No cars speeding down the street. No one knocking to borrow sugar and stay too long. My days were simple, and that's what made them good. I'd wake up early, brew strong coffee that could probably take the paint off a fence, and walk the line with Ranger, my Belgian Malinois. He's sharp, calm, and picks up signals better than most people I served with. The sun out here hits different, rises slow and clean, spreads over the hills like it's proud to show up. I'd check the fences, feed the animals, maybe fix up an old engine or two in the barn. No rush, no orders, no tension. That's why the first letter from the HOA felt so out of place. Tucked in with my regular mail, stamped all neat with gold foil like it meant something. Said I had violations. My solar panels were too visible, my fencing was non-standard, and my flagpole was visually disruptive. I laughed at first. My property isn't even inside their jurisdiction. I checked the records myself before I bought it. Thought it was just a mistake. But it didn't stop there. That was the first hint that someone, somewhere, didn't like that I was living free and quiet. And they weren't going to stop until they pulled me into their mess. The first letter was strange, but I didn't take it seriously. It had that shiny HOA stamp on it like it was from the government or something, and it listed a bunch of things I was supposedly doing wrong. Non-compliant fencing material, unapproved solar panel layout, and my favorite, visually aggressive flagpole. I read that one twice just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. Visually aggressive? It's an American flag on a pole, not a strobe light. I almost spit my coffee. At first I figured it was a mistake. Maybe they sent it to the wrong address. Maybe someone new on the board was getting a little too excited with their clipboard. But then the second letter came. And the third. Each one was more serious, more pushy. They kept saying things like, "Failure to comply will result in action," Action? What kind of action? I'm not even in the HOA's territory. My land sits well outside the lines. I double-checked the county records when I bought it. I knew where the borders were, then came the photos. Grainy shots of my property taken from a distance. One of my flag, one of the solar panels, and one of me, sitting in my lawn chair holding a pair of binoculars. That one set something off in me. It meant someone had been watching, not just driving by or peeking over a fence, but actually hiding out and taking pictures. That's when I stopped brushing it off. I started checking the fence line more carefully. I set up a few trail cams and motion lights. Not because I was scared, but because something wasn't sitting right. This wasn't about rules or community standards. This was about someone trying to poke the wrong bear, and I was about to find out just how far they were willing to go. After that photo of me showed up in the mail, things started to shift. I wasn't just annoyed anymore, I was alert. That feeling you get when you know someone's watching but you haven't spotted them yet? That's the kind of quiet that buzzes in your ears. I didn't want to go to the sheriff yet. Not because I didn't trust them, but because I didn't want to start a file. Not until I knew exactly who and what I was dealing with. I wasn't reacting. I was letting her reveal herself. I upgraded the setup around the ranch. Motion sensors along the fence line, small trail cams tucked into brush, solar alarms near the barn. Nothing flashy. Nothing obvious. Just the kind of tools that stay silent until they need to speak. I even mounted a low-light camera into one of the old birdhouses. Anyone crossing into my land now would leave a digital footprint behind, whether they knew it or not. Ranger caught on quick. He started picking up on things I missed, pausing at certain spots, ears up, nose twitching. Once, I followed him to the edge of the north field and found a fresh set of footprints. Too small for a man, too careless to be anyone trained. Karen, maybe? Or someone she sent. Then came the drone. First time I saw it, I thought it was just a hobbyist flying over for fun. But it came back. Again and again. Same path, same altitude, hovered longer each time, and always aimed toward the solar panels. That's when I knew. This wasn't random. Someone was testing my limits, seeing what I'd do. So I did what I've always done best. I stayed quiet, watched, and waited. It happened on a Tuesday night, just after I'd shut down the tools in the barn and was wiping grease off my hands. The air was still, too still. Ranger lifted his head and let out a low growl, the kind he only uses when something's off. Then came the sound. Glass shattering, sharp and fast, like someone threw a rock through a window. But it wasn't a rock. It was her. Karen stormed through the side door of the barn like she owned the place. Pink tracksuit, oversized sunglasses even though it was dark, and in her hands, a metal bat. She was yelling about code enforcement and unauthorized use of private land. Her voice bounced off the walls like a siren. She wasn't scared. She was angry. Wild. Completely convinced that she had every right to be there. I didn't move right away. I stayed in the shadows, watching her swing that bat like she was on some kind of mission. Ranger stood beside me, not barking, just waiting for my signal. When she stepped into the middle of the barn and raised the bat again, I aimed the rifle low and clicked off the safety. The red laser dot landed square in the middle of her chest. That's when she froze. I stepped forward slowly, calm as ever. "You broke in. You're on tape. The sheriff's en route," I said. My voice didn't need to be loud. It just had to be steady. Her eyes widened like she was only just realizing this wasn't going how she planned. She dropped the bat. Then came the shouting. How she was with the HOA, how I was violating rules, how she was there to correct the situation. I didn't answer. I just reached over and hit the lock on the barn door behind her. Click, the door sealed. The cameras lit up. Every second was being recorded in full HD, streamed to 3 different drives. She spun around, tried to pry the door open, started banging on the walls. Ranger didn't move. Neither did I. I leaned back against the wall and let her yell. Eventually, she slipped on a patch of oil, flailed like a cartoon, and landed flat. Ranger gave a single bark, short, sharp, almost like he was laughing, and I couldn't help but smile. Not because it was funny, but because the game had finally changed. After the break-in, it was clear Karen wasn't just some bored neighbor with a clipboard. She was playing a longer game, and if I wanted to stay ahead, I had to stop thinking like a rancher and start thinking like the soldier I used to be. That night, I made a call to Eli. We served together a long time ago. He was cyber intel, the kind of guy who could make a laptop sing or go silent with a few keystrokes. These days, he worked from his cabin in Colorado, mostly off-grid, but he owed me a favor. By the next evening, he had helped me set up a whole new layer of security. Silent motion sensors hidden in the fence posts, thermal trail cams disguised as tree knots, even low-light microphones buried near the footpaths. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't visible, but it saw everything. Every step someone took near my land now pinged straight to my screen. Then came Linda. Sweet lady from down the road. Brought over a peach cobbler like it was just another day, then handed me a thick binder and said, "Thought you could use some dessert and dirt." Turns out Linda wasn't just a good cook. She used to work for the NSA. She'd been tracking Karen for months, had printouts of emails, screenshots from neighborhood chats, even photos of Karen signing off on fake HOA notices and charging inspection fees to homes she didn't legally oversee. One file was labeled "Coal Problem" with timestamps and pictures of my property. "I don't go to war unless I know I'll win," I told Linda as I flipped through the evidence. She just nodded and said, "Good," because she thinks she's untouchable. But that was the thing about people like Karen. They never expect someone to watch them back. It didn't take long for Karen to make her next move. When someone like her loses control, they don't slow down. They double down. This time she didn't come herself. She sent 2 of her little enforcers, middle-aged guys in matching blue polos trying to look official. One of them wore knee braces and tried to act tactical, like he'd seen too many cop shows. They crept onto my land just before midnight, thinking they were being sneaky. They weren't. They slipped past the private property signs I had posted in bold 10 feet apart, stepped right over a string of wire and made their way to one of my signs, the big one by the road that read, "Not HOA land." They tried to rip it out. One grabbed it, the other held a flashlight, and that's when the system kicked in. Motion sensors tripped. Floodlights snapped on like stadium lights. A siren wailed across the field, loud enough to shake the trees. And from the speakers buried near the barn, a looped message blared. "You are trespassing. Law enforcement has been notified." Ranger barked from the dark, deep and sharp, like a shot across the bow. The guy with the flashlight dropped it. The other one ran straight into a cactus patch and went down hard. They panicked, pure fight-or-flight mode. One scrambled to his feet and lost a shoe. The other dropped a clipboard with HOA letterhead and just bolted. I watched from the porch, drink in hand, as their car fishtailed out of my driveway like they'd just seen a ghost. That was the moment I stopped calling this a dispute. This wasn't enforcement. This was an invasion. And she was about to find out just how bad of an idea that really was. By this point, I had more than enough proof. It wasn't just Karen being a nuisance anymore. It was fraud, harassment, and a full-on abuse of whatever made-up power she thought she had. With help from Linda and Eli, I pulled everything together into one tight package. Photos, video clips, emails, voice recordings, and even a few screenshots from HOA group chats where Karen talked about shutting me down, like this was some kind of war zone. It wasn't pretty, but it was solid. Real evidence that couldn't be ignored. I sent it to 3 places: the sheriff's department, the county office, and a local blogger who writes about small-town drama like it's his full-time job. I didn't sign my name, just added a sticky note that said, "She picked the wrong sniper to mess with." Figured that was enough to make the point. A few days later, the story hit. Headline was bold and blunt. Local HOA president under fire for fraud, harassment, and illegal surveillance. Right under it was Karen's smiling face from the HOA website, looking like she just won a bake sale, not someone who'd hired fake contractors and funneled dues into shell accounts tied to her cousin's landscaping company that never actually did a day of work. The article spread fast. People in the neighborhood who used to defend her suddenly went quiet. Others started asking questions, loud ones. The same people who ignored my warnings before were now angry that their money had vanished into her little empire. 2 board members resigned that night. Karen didn't say a word, but she didn't have to. Everyone saw it now. The mask had dropped, and all that was left was a woman who thought she could bully anyone she wanted. Until she ran into someone who doesn't scare easy. She came back one last time, trying to play it different. No shouting, no bat. Just a tight smile and a man in a cheap suit standing beside her, holding a clipboard. She stepped out of her SUV like nothing had ever happened and waved like we were neighbors catching up over coffee. "Just reviewing some easement lines, Cole. Nothing serious," she said, all fake calm. I didn't answer. Just stood still with my arms crossed, Ranger sitting quietly at my side, ears forward, eyes locked on her. He didn't bark. He didn't need to. Just that low growl, steady and sharp, was enough to make the man next to her shift his weight and glance toward his car. She kept smiling, pretending we were all just having a friendly chat. That lasted maybe 30 seconds before the sheriff's SUV pulled up behind her. Deputy Morales stepped out slow, took one look at me, then at her. "Ma'am," he said, flat and cold. "You were told not to come near this property. There's an active investigation." Karen's smile cracked. "He's dangerous," she snapped. "He has weapons. He's a threat to our whole community." Morales didn't flinch. He looked at her, then at the guy with the clipboard. "Sir, unless you want to be involved in this mess, I suggest you get back in your vehicle." Clipboard guy didn't argue. He nodded, turned, and got in without a word. Karen stood there, fuming. "This is harassment. I'm the victim," I finally spoke. Just 4 words. "You already lost, Karen." She didn't have a comeback. Just turned red, spun on her heel, and stormed back to her SUV. Tires kicked up dust as she sped off. But I didn't move. Neither did Ranger. Because this time she wasn't coming back with noise. This time, she was leaving with silence. And that said everything. After everything, it didn't end with a bang. It ended in courtrooms and paperwork. Karen was hit with charges: fraud, harassment, conspiracy. Her lawyers tried every excuse they could dig up, from stress to miscommunication, but none of it held. There was too much evidence, too many witnesses. She was banned from holding any HOA position again. Ever. Her power trip was officially over. A few weeks later, I heard her house had been sold. The new owner was a federal judge named Elena. She walked up to my gate with a tray of cinnamon rolls and a firm handshake. Said she liked her privacy, didn't care for drama, and kept a 9mm in her nightstand. Ranger liked her right away. That was all the approval I needed. Then came the moment that really got to me. One Sunday morning, a group of kids from the neighborhood came by with their parents. They were shy at first, standing just outside the gate holding a small wooden plaque. It said, "Thank you for protecting our community. From your quiet friends." They had drawn little flags, a horse, and a cartoon version of Ranger wearing a cape. I didn't say much, just nodded, took the plaque, and hung it in the barn that night. The land felt different after that. Not heavier. Lighter. No more strange cars parked near the fence. No more buzzing drones. Just the sound of wind through the grass, and Ranger stretched out by my feet, calm for the first time in weeks. I still checked the cameras, still walked the perimeter. Old habits die hard, but I knew it deep down. This time, the peace was real. A couple weeks after things settled down, I was out by the fence at sunset, just enjoying the quiet. Ranger was lying nearby, half asleep, the kind of peace you only see after a long storm. Then I saw it, a dark SUV creeping along the dirt road. Slow, almost too slow. Tinted windows, out-of-state plates. It didn't stop, didn't pull in, just rolled past, steady as a shadow, and disappeared down the hill. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just someone lost, looking for a shortcut. But I've seen that kind of slow before. The kind where someone isn't driving. They're watching. Ranger lifted his head, stared after it until it was gone. I didn't reach for a weapon. Didn't say a word. Just walked back toward the house and made a quiet note to check the footage. Because I've learned one thing. Tyrants don't travel alone.